Good morning. Coffee cheers to you. So, I've been being more consistent on my channel, and if you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. I provide an objective viewpoint on some of these conversations that are going on in America and around the world. Like I say, and I emphasize this, I am politically and socially neutral. So that means I don't really have a commitment to any echo chamber in America. But recent conversations has sparked some people from across platforms to ask me, what is Black culture, right? And to ask me what is Black culture would be like asking me what is white culture in America. What is white culture in America, right? And what is African culture? What is Caribbean culture? What is Irish culture, right? The complicated thing about America is that it's a non homogenous nation, meaning that over the centuries, America has evolved from being this sort of Anglo established nation, right, to this diverse nation, right? Industrial revolution, right? You're bringing in a lot of immigrant workers, a lot of people to help build the nation. But even before the Industrial Revolution, the nation leveraged slaves to help build the nation. Now, when it comes to those African slaves, right, there's a couple of things that people have to understand, right? Over the generations of those African slaves, some of them tried to maintain their African culture, but by force, many of them were westernized. They were forced to absorb Western cultures. And even though they shared their stories and their hymns about where they came from to kind of maintain some sense of cultural identity, for the most part, as the decades went by, um, generations of slaves became more westernized, right? So they became more like the colonizers that colonized them while having this shadow of a memory of what their old culture and old home was like. So fast forward to modern America, right? What is Black culture? That is the question that people keep asking me. And I think in order to understand what Black culture is, we need to kind of just dive into what the definition of culture is, right? Let's look at what the definition of culture is, right? So, culture is a broad, according to this AI generated definition on Google, culture is a broad and complex concept that can encompass many aspects of human life and existence, okay? It refers to the shared beliefs, right? So, what are some shared beliefs that Black Americans concede to, right? We concede to the fact that we were the one of the racial groups that were leveraged by force to build this nation, right? We believe that even after we were able to, we believe that we had to fight for our freedoms in this nation, and these things happened, right? We believe that even after we tried to fight for our freedoms in these nations, there were still interested persons that wanted to maintain a marginalized and enslaved condition for Black Americans, right? We believe that we are possible in this nation. We believe that we are just as capable as anybody else in this nation. Historically, Blacks have been more on the Christian faith side, and even if you remove some of the American westernized faith-based ideologies and superimpose on some of those Africans, they still had some sense of Hebrew customs, right? Which made them linked to the Abrahamic faith, right? So Black people do believe in God for the most part. Um, what else do we believe? And we do believe that there are systems set in place in America to and individuals specifically who are in these systems who have a supremacist mindset to keep Black people down. So they look at Black people with intimidating factors, with intimidating eyes, if you will. They look at the projections of Black people. Some of these people are responsible for the carving of the image of the Black individual in America in a negative way, so that other groups have a negative perception, and even Black people themselves have a negative perception about who they are, who they should be, and what their ideas of Blackness should really encompass. And then again, we're going to the values. This is part of culture, right? Black people value family. There are a lot of Black people who value family. They value stability. They value hard work, which is the projection that they're lazy and all this, and they're not motivated. But let's keep it real. Who the hell beyond Black people, let's just keep it real, feels super motivated in this collapsing ass country right now, where future generations are pretty much taking on the burden of all the crappy things that the people in the past did? Who the hell feels motivated right now? Like, this is not even a Black thing. This is just a people thing. So stop superimposing those beliefs on Blacks and Hispanics, because there's a lot of people looking at this country and how it is degrading, and they're not very motivated. Let's keep it real. Traditions, right? Traditions. Black people, traditionally, we have shared stories. We have shared music. We've created music, right? We've shared memories. We have the same similar traditions as most people when it comes to core family values, right? Now, many can argue, well, the Black family, it's been destroyed in America. But honestly, that wasn't by the Black people's design. That wasn't by Black people's design. When you look at economic policies that are directly created to say, hey, you can benefit from this subsidy, you can feed your kids if you get your man out of the home, right? If you get your man out of the home. So for a Black working man who's trying to take care of his family, right? And then they're creating all kinds of systems to short squeeze the system where companies are laying off and making it impossible to do that, right? That's not a design of Black people. But when it comes to traditions, music, style, and I would even say cadence, there's, a Black American from somebody else. We have a different style, cadence, characteristic about ourselves. And traditionally, the confidence of a Black person is pretty natural. It really takes this system to break it down, right? Social norms, right? There's a reason why people, when they're talking to people, they're shaking their hair and they're looking direct at people, because directness is really a social norm of Black people. We are not a race of people that will sit there and mince words with you. We are not a race of people that will sit there and just tolerate somebody being disrespectful. And even in America, our tolerance level for disrespectful people are very low, right? But there's always people who want to try Black people because they have bought into projections about Black people, and their supremacy will tell them to try Black people, right? But we're very direct people. We don't mince words, right? I don't think that Black people are highly trusting people, right? Behaviorally, same thing. If you want to, and I always tell people, when you're talking about Black America, let's talk about which segment that you're talking about, because behaviorally, the behaviors are going to be different across segments. You have your poverty line Blacks, you have your fading middle class Blacks, and then you have your, percentage of high net worth Black people in America, right? And the behaviors of these individuals are going to be different across the board, right? But the interest of these people may be, I'm going to support Black music, Black artists, Black, whatever. So that's where the music comes in, where Black people have always used music to communicate with each other, to soothe our souls, to soothe each other's soul. And the system of supremacists realize all the things that made up Black culture, and they really try to hijack those fabrics, especially the ones that feed into our spirits, like the music, right? So, when you're talking about Black music, it's the most organic when the industry doesn't own it. It has zero control or influence on it. The best Black music is really not the music that is being promoted right now. The music that is being promoted right now is music that personifies Black culture in a negative, hypersexualized way. And so that's why people are confused about what is Black culture, because they are getting projections and ideas of what Black culture is, but they're not really understanding that these projections are coming from the poverty line behaviors and mindsets. A group of people who share the same living environment and specific region of the world. Now, this is where, so for us, our living environment, Black Americans, is America. And America, again, is a cultural melting pot, and it's a non-homogenous nation. So what Black Americans really are they are a product of broken African culture, right? Forgotten African culture in many degrees, and Western cultures, right? That is Black culture, and that fusion is what made us be able to produce the type of music that we produce. It's that fusion that helps us to kind of understand a foundational belief, because even though African tribes were colonized by these European people, we were at least colonized by people who share the Hebrew or Abrahamic faith. Because again, you look at a lot of these documentaries about the backgrounds of those tribes of people that were brought to America, many of them had Semitic practices, and that's undeniable. So that's just to say, what is Black culture? It is a fusion of broken African and Western culture. Black culture, you have to break it down into what it actually is for many Black people, and that culture can be different because each Black American is running on a different Black American experience in connection to where their economic classes are. The music, what they've done with hip hop is, when you look at Black music and how it has evolved over the years, right? You had Berry Gordy and the Motown sound, which was a great reflection of Black music, Black struggle, right? And a great reflection of Black culture and the Black experience, right? Then you transition into the 70s, where Blacks were more revolutionary in their music, but they were still more hopeful and wanting to have some level of change, right? Going into the 80s, right? And you have this whole wave of culture. Now Black culture is deeply just woven into what this American idea is. And so when I look at the music, we still were creating our own sounds, right? When you're talking about like hip hop and you're talking about, those poverty line people creating their sound, these guys in the 80s were very similar to Berry Gordy, who created that Motown sound and made that Motown sound kind of a beacon for Detroit. These guys in the 80s, they were creating, the breakdance culture, in the hip hop space, all of that stuff. And I would even say techno played a huge role in the formation of Black culture and sounds in many different ways, when it comes to the techno dance club beats too. So we were just kind of busy, creating our culture, evolving our culture, if you will, with the times, right? but you still had some sense of soul, right? And you still had some sense of spirit. And I think that's really the what Black culture is a soul and a spirit and a music and a food, even down to the food, right? You go to some of these Caribbean, I've had Caribbean friends and I've eaten their food and stuff, and very similar type of foods there, right? In some degrees, like the plantains and they do the greens too or whatnot. But it's like, we do the yams, right? And we do the greens, right? And we do the stuffings, right? So some of the traditional Thanksgiving type style foods, that's really immersed in our culture as well, because that's part of the Western American culture, right? So it's a huge fusion of the fabrics of America and the evolution of America, over time, while having those fragments and those spirits of African culture. And even though Black Americans are not Africans because we're culturally different, what links Black Americans and Africans is ancestry, the nation in which we've come from, much like in Irish America, right? That is how they're linked to somebody over in Ireland, right? Even though this American could be generations removed from Ireland, that is how an Irish American would be linked to their Irish heritage roots, right? So if they're observing St. Patrick's Day and they're wearing kilts and they're observing different Irish holidays and stuff, that's them paying homage to their culture. And there are a lot of Black Americans who want to be immersed in the African culture and their heritage and their roots to the extent where they do the same thing, right? So I think I didn't want to make this a super long video, but when people ask me about what is Black culture, I think you really need to start with the definition of what is culture, and then talk to Black people about those different talking points of what do Black people believe? What are their values? What are their traditions, right? What are their social norms and what are their behaviors, right? In America, right? And that's really how you're going to get a cultural understanding of what Black culture is. So this is just my perspective. There's definitely a lot more depth to this conversation, but I'm just kind of giving a brief overview, based off of my, opinion about that question. And hopefully it's helpful to people. So I hope that everybody have a wonderful day. And the one thing I do want to mention too before I end this, and I guess I'm going to go at 20 minutes here, is that the reason why, Black people are calling into the question these Black looking representatives who are propped to personify and project and represent us is the fact that many of these Black looking people do not have the interests of Black people. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of this Somalian lady talking to these Black Americans, and she's calling them the N-word with the ER, right? And she's talking to them, belittling them, talking about, basically using social projections and stereotypes to insult these Black people, right? And so not all Black looking people are favorable to Black Americans. Many of these groups, these beneficiary people, they can't stand us, right? And there's reasons why they may feel that way. A lot of them are coming from bum-broken countries, escaping, running, and they're coming over here. And they come over here and they realize that even the poorest of Black Americans are living better than their richest people. So I understand some of the sentiments. Look, I can't account for anything like that. I grew up in the Midwest, and Black Americans in the Midwest are hardworking people. But anyways, I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and I will catch you on the next one. And if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.